नमस्ते दोस्तों, आपका स्वागत है मेरे चैनल पर। इसे सब्सक्राइब करें और घंटी आइकन दबाएं।
Okay, so today we are diving into the absolutely wild story of how a single for-profit company managed to conquer an entire subcontinent. Seriously, it's a story about ambition, about betrayal, and really about one of the biggest, most audacious heists in all of human history. Let's just start with a number. A number that's, well, it's pretty hard to even wrap your head around. $45 trillion. That is the estimated amount of wealth that was drained from India over about 200 years of British rule. And this whole process, it didn't start with an empire. It started with one company. So that massive number, it just begs the question, right? How on earth did a small group of English merchants, who were really just trying to trade spices, end up conquering and basically bleeding dry what was then one of the richest nations in the world? To figure that out, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. In our story, it doesn't kick off with an army or a king. It starts with a simple piece of paper, a royal charter, granted on the very last day of the year, 1600, to a pretty small group of traders in London. You know, their first goal was actually pretty straightforward. They wanted to get a piece of the action in the incredibly profitable spice trade. The only problem was that whole market was pretty much locked down by their big rivals, the Dutch. So after getting pushed out of Indonesia by other Europeans, the company set its sights on India. But, well, their first attempt at diplomacy was a total disaster. When Captain William Hawkins showed up at the court of the powerful Mughal Emperor Jahangir, he didn't just get a no. He was pretty much dismissed. I mean, why would the emperor deal with these newcomers when he already had a relationship with the Portuguese? Okay, so they were rejected, but they were definitely not defeated. The East India Company quickly figured out India's biggest vulnerability, and this was the key that was going to unlock the entire subcontinent for them. It was full of deep, internal divisions. You have to remember, 17th century India wasn't one single unified country. It was this really complex, fractured place. You had the Mughal Empire, which was starting to decline, dozens of local kingdoms, and then all these different European trading companies, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the French, all of them fighting for a piece of the pie. And in this chaotic free-for-all, the company learned a super important lesson, and they learned it early. Military power was the real key to making money. In 1612, a tiny fleet of just 4 company ships took on and defeated a much larger Portuguese force. Now, this small battle had huge consequences. It completely shattered the idea that the Portuguese were unbeatable at sea, and it really impressed the local Mughal authorities. And then came the real game changer. After 1707, the central Mughal authority just sort of crumbled, creating this huge power vacuum. And who stepped right into that chaos? The company. They used their growing army and their deep pockets to expertly play local rulers and their European rivals against each other. So this sets the stage for the company's most dramatic shift yet. This is the moment their entire business model flips from just doing commerce to outright conquest. Through a nasty mix of bribery, outright betrayal, and just better military tactics, the company seized control of Bengal, which was by far the richest province in all of India. First, at the Battle of Plassey, they literally conspired with a traitor, Mir Jafar, to defeat the local ruler. Then they put their guy, Mir Jafar, on the throne as a puppet. And a few years later, at Buxar, they crushed the combined armies of 3 major Indian powers, sealing the deal. I mean, think about that transformation. The company didn't just win a battle. They basically won the entire business. That victory at Buxar, it got them the ultimate prize, the right to collect taxes from millions and millions of people. This changed absolutely everything. So, with political power now locked down, the company could finally get to its real work, building a brutally efficient machine designed for one thing: extracting wealth. So with these Diwani rights, granted in 1765, the company took over the entire state treasury. They weren't just traders anymore, they were the government. And they could use the state's own money to fund their own expansion. It's just incredible. The sort of twisted genius of their system was this perfect, self-fueling cycle of exploitation. Check this out. Step 1, use your army to take political control. Step 2, collect taxes from the Indian people. But here's the kicker. Step 3,
use that exact same tax money to buy Indian goods to export. They were basically getting Indian products for free. And then the profits from those free goods were used to fund an even bigger army so they could go conquer more territory and just start the cycle all over again.
And just to speed things up, they even cooked up these phony legal reasons for takeovers. The infamous doctrine of lapse was this made-up rule that basically said they could just absorb any kingdom if the ruler died without a male heir. And using this flimsy excuse, they swallowed up major states like Jhansi, Satara, and Nagpur, grabbing even more power and, of course, more revenue. So after decades of this relentless exploitation, insane taxes, and aggressive land grabs, you've got a powder keg of resentment just sitting there, all across India. And by the middle of the 19th century, that keg was about to blow. You know, in the first few months of 1857, something really strange started happening. Flatbreads, chapatis, were being passed by runners from village to village across northern India. Nobody knew who started it or what it really meant, but for the British officials, it was this mysterious, deeply unnerving sign that something was brewing. The spark that finally lit the fuse was a rumor. Word spread that the new rifle cartridges given to the Indian soldiers, the sepoys, were greased with cow and pig fat, which is a huge insult to both Hindus and Muslims. So when a sepoy named Mango Pandey fired the first shot of protest, it lit up the first war of Indian independence. It was this massive rebellion that brought together soldiers, princes, and peasants, all against company rule. Now, the rebellion was eventually and very brutally crushed. But it sent a crystal clear message back to London. A for-profit corporation, driven by shareholder greed, just couldn't be trusted to manage an empire anymore. The British government had to step in. So, with the Government of India Act of 1858, the East India Company was officially dissolved. Its reign was over. All of its land, its massive private army, its tax revenues, everything was formally transferred to the British Crown. The management of India went from a corporate boardroom straight to Queen Victoria and Parliament. But here's the thing. For the people of India, this wasn't freedom. It was just a change in management. The chaotic, profit-obsessed plundering of the company was just replaced by the more organized, bureaucratic exploitation of the British Raj. The drain of wealth kept going, just under a new brand. And that leaves us with one last, pretty chilling thought. The story of the East India Company, it's not just ancient history. It's a powerful case study of the incredible power that corporations can wield when their hunt for profit is completely unchecked. It really makes you ask, if a company could literally become a state back then, what does that tell us about the influence of corporate power in our world today?
Like, comment and subscribe my channel.